Hello and welcome to the C++ Fundamentals course. Now in this video, we are going to introduce the concept of the C++ program and describe exactly what goes into the most basic C++ program. We're going to talk about functions, one of the most important tools in programming. And we're going to talk about how every single C++ program has the main function. Now, if the words main function to you mean eating potato chips and playing video games, I'm right there with you. But we're going to talk about a different kind of main function. You see, every C++ program has an entry point where the code execution starts. And in C++, that entry point is called the main function. And it's a function called main. So what exactly is a function anyway? Well, a function is a piece of code that contains a series of instructions, and when the function runs, all the instructions get carried out one after the other to complete a certain task. Here's an example. Let's say you've got a buddy who texts you in the morning asking if you're awake yet. Naturally, you text back no, at which point your friend's probably wondering how you can text back while you're asleep, but eventually you're gonna have to get up. Let's represent this as a function called getUp. Now, in order to perform this function, you're first going to hit snooze on your alarm clock, and then you're going to go back to sleep. Then you're going to repeat this process until you finally decide to kick off your blankets and get dressed. Then you'll eat some stale pizza, skip brushing your teeth, and then check your social media for about 45 minutes. Okay, maybe your getUp function is a little different than mine. Maybe you skip getting dressed too, but the point is that the function consists of several small steps that collectively come together to get a task done. In this case, they get you up. Now the main function looks something like this. This line here is called the function header. It consists of the function name, which is main in this case, and these other two confusing parts that make absolutely no sense whatsoever. Don't worry, we'll get to those later and you'll understand them soon enough. Now look at the curly braces here. This is called the function body, and the function header along with the function body make up the function definition. Now we put all of our commands in the function body. All of these commands will get carried out when the function runs. These commands are called statements, and we signify the end of each statement with a semicolon. Semicolons are kind of like the period at the end of a sentence. They're required. If you leave out a semicolon, your computer just might explode. And what's worse, your program will fail to run. So anyway, we have our main function. And we know that all the code we put in the function body will be run when we run our program. But we've already worked so hard to create the main function, we're exhausted, and we don't want to make any more functions. Well, luckily for us, C++ has all kinds of functions built into it, and we can use those because we want to be lazy and do as little work as possible. These built-in functions exist in libraries, which contain lots of pre-made functions that some programmers slaved away to create so we could just use them in our programs. We can include these libraries into our source code with the include directive. Here's how it works. We simply put the include directive at the top of our source file, followed by the name of the library we want to include in angle brackets. Once included, we now have access to all these cool functions that exist in the library. Pretty cool, right? So how do we use these functions? Well, we have to call the function to get it to run. To call a function, we simply type out the function name with parentheses at the end. The parentheses indicate that we're calling a function. Don't forget your semicolon. When the program starts, these statements get executed one at a time, and the flow of execution, or order in which statements get carried out, starts at the top of the main function and works its way down until it reaches the end of the main function and the program terminates. Pretty simple. Now, some functions require input. For these, the input goes into the parentheses. It's said that we pass the input into the function, and the function takes that input data and uses it to perform its task. These inputs are called parameters, And sometimes, just to be difficult, programmers will also refer to them as arguments, so you may hear both of those terms. They both mean function input. Okay, so to summarize, we learned that every program has a main function, and this is the entry point where the code execution starts. We learned that functions are pieces of code that contain statements, each of which come together to perform a task. We also learned that we have to put a semicolon at the end of each statement to terminate it, otherwise our program will fail to run. We also learned that there exist libraries that contain lots of pre-made functions that we can access by using the include directive in our source files. So now that we understand what comes together to make a basic C++ program, we are now ready to create our own. So get your typing hands warmed up and meet me in the next video.